It will be added to the program archive online on the AFP website, where you can check out all of our other sick programs of yore. Now for today's main event, to introduce the panel and begin the conversation about AI and fundraising, please join me in giving a big welcome and aloha to fellow AFP board member, Jennifer Lee Dobson.
Woo! Thank you, Greg. So aloha, everyone. Jennifer Lee Dotson, she, her pronouns. I am a female Asian with brown skin. I'm wearing brown glasses. I have long black hair and a black shirt today. So a komomai, welcome, calling in from the ancestral lands of the Puyallup and Silicon people. Super excited to get us started. So we have a jam-packed agenda. Greg is going to do me a huge favor as my partner in this program. He's going to monitor the chat. So if there are any comments or questions that you have in the chat, please drop them. We're going to try to keep this as interactive as possible with Mina and with my colleague Sal. So Sal, I want to actually start us off with a quick question for you. Please, our goal here is to demystify AI, make it not scary. Share some very easy to use resources that are actionable for our fundraisers in their day-to-day work. This is our call to action for today. I would love you to start us off. How would you demystify AI? What is AI and what is machine learning? Sal, please, the floor is yours, my friend. And with that, I think Sal will be joining us shortly. But Mina, would you please be so kind? Let me share with you, Mina, I met because she used to be here in Washington State. She has now moved northwards of us to Vancouver. And in the meantime, we have talked about all things. All things. She is the type of person, when you're in the room with her, you feel like the center of the universe because she is a true people person. Even when she takes a walk around the block, she is stopping to talk to people that she's never met before and then gets their life story. Have you ever met someone like that? That is Mina. So, Mina, if you might be so kind for us. Demystify AI for me. We have all sorts of people from wide range of background. Tell us what, in your own words, what is AI and what is machine learning?
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for giving that beautiful introduction to me. We just met. How did you learn so much about me that I talked to a stranger? Did the strangers come and talk to you? Did they say Mina's talking to me? Oh. Hi everyone, I am Meena Das. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am joining from the unceded territory and traditional land of Coast Salish peoples from Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I am a first-generation immigrant here in this part of the world. I grew up in beautiful India, and I am very grateful for the land that I'm on. I am right now wearing a green shirt. I have a light brown skin with black hair, actually long black hair. Right now they are all pinned, and I am standing on my desk here and trying to gather some energy as I am in my back-to-back calls today. But this is fun talking to you all. So demystifying AI. I have worked in the space of AI for a very long time. I used to work in the tech, from tech to consulting, nonprofit consulting, and now that I do my own thing, I have one goal in my work: how to align who I am and what I do in terms of data and technology. How do you align your lived and learned experiences in technology, which translates for me into AI? So I'll start with just one simple example of AI, and then I'll pass it on to my friend Sal, because I know I can see you here, which is great, yay. So what is AI in machine learning? Well, I'll start with the example because I know, Jennifer, you asked this question a few days back, like a third grader. Explain to me what AI can be. So imagine, I take a lot of examples from kitchen. So imagine on your fridge, there is a program, a little program, right, that can look into your fridge, right, everything that it has, and then it is going to tell you, these are the 2 recipes you can eat today based on everything it is there in the fridge. And these are the things you should be buying in your grocery list for the coming weeks and months. That is something it can do. How is it learning? It is learning based on everything that you have in your fridge already existing. That little program on that fridge, that's actually learning from it and trying to predict something for you. That's basically what AI is. AI is basically looking at an objective, collecting some data about it, running it through an algorithm. Let's call it algorithm. You can also call it a model. It's going to create some predictions for you, some output for you that you are going to use to create some strategies that is going to affect your behaviors, that's which I like to call algorithmic behaviors, and it's going to create some form of an impact. That whole thing, that's part of the AI life cycle. And that little program on the fridge, that's one example of how it is constantly learning based on the things that you are providing to it so that it can create an output for you. I know we are going to talk about the ethical implications and all of it, so I'm going to bring us back to the same example. But Sal, I'm handing
All
over.
right, great. Can everyone hear me all right? This is all working now? We're good? Okay. So I'm just Jennifer, so you know, and Greg, I've got my video on my phone and my screen share is going to be on a different Sal that's in the room. So I've got 2 things here I'm looking at. Okay, cool. So yeah, AI. Mina, thanks for the in-depth there about it and some squaring up of the concept of AI and how to use it. We're going to talk more in depth about that and really take the scary out of it and make this something that's actionable for everyone to be able to really use in their day-to-day. So with that, Jennifer, unless there's some other things you'd like me to touch on, I'm happy to share my screen and we can start diving into some of the topics. I invite everyone, to ask questions. Greg will manage those. Mina, if you have comments and some stories to add or some context to what I'm sharing, please do. You're the real expert here at this stuff, and I'll get into a little bit of what that differentiation is. Jennifer, if you can give us screen sharing ability to the other me.
There you go. Your wish is
my screen here
granted, my
too, if
friend.
that's easier.
Voila! It's like AI.
Want to do it so you'll run the slides? Is that good?
Yep, I can advance these for you.
All right, great. So there we go. We know who we are, myself and Mina. So I wanted to start with this and kind of square up 2 terms that you may hear, right? Machine learning and AI. What's the difference? Really, there's 2 quotes here, and when I think of AI, I think of robots and sci-fi and C-3PO and Lost in Space. Artificial intelligence is a technology using which we can create intelligent systems that simulate human intelligence. All right, so really, it's this quest for humanity to create a likeness of itself in robot form. That's really what that is. And then machine learning is really a subfield of artificial intelligence, which enables machines to learn from past data or experiences without being explicitly programmed. Does that make sense? So AI is really a larger concept, and machine learning is really the application of that concept, right? Social sciences is the overarching concept. Psychology is the application of that. So that's one way to frame that up as we move forward through this. So let's look at the next slide. Okay, so you have really 2 buckets of AI, and we want to make sure that this is super clear and that everyone understands this. AI, like the human brain, has really 2 sides to it: predictive and generative. Your predictive AI is working to make outcomes based on massive data sets. So look at the left side of the brain. That's a lot of math. It's a lot of logic, things like that. So predictive AI is going to predict something based on historical data. It's going to look at massive data sets and look for correlations between two or more variables. Let's give a practical example of predictive AI. Let's look at hundreds of thousands of envelopes that are mailed back in a direct mail exercise, and we see that a certain number of them have a postage stamp on them, on a prepaid envelope. So we can look at that in an aggregate, and when analyzed, and we can look at other data, we can say, hey, for some reason, we see a longer donor retention and lifetime value with the donor when there's a postage stamp on the envelope. And Jennifer, this is a story that came from Greg Fox when he was visiting with us at the offices there last month from the Moore Group. And they found this information by feeding it into an engine and saying, hey, what can the machine pick up out of this data set that we as humans can't? There's too few examples or too much data for us to look at a spreadsheet and go, oh, this looks interesting. Machines have to do that for us. Another example of AI, predictive AI, let's make sure we keep that in the bucket because that's going to help us as we learn to adopt AI in our day-to-day. Another example is, let's look at hundreds of thousands of donations, and AI can work out and say, hey, it looks like if it's an iPhone user, they're giving more on average, right? And the actual stat with our technology and platform that I look at, it's about 32% more in the average gift size when it's an iPhone, right? Using Apple Pay. So AI is going to start looking at, hey, these donors that are coming in, let me look at the surrounding context of that donor, not of the organization and myself as a fundraiser, but let's look, right, that's unmanageable. Let's look at larger data sets and say, hey, looking at an iPhone user in New York, they're giving more than an iPhone user in Nebraska or Saskatchewan, and let's right size the ask for them. So that's what AI is working out, those kinds of things. So you can really have a different donation ask amount for new donors, historical donors, and so on by using predictive AI to make predictions based on stuff we know that's basically too big of a job for humans to crunch all that data. Let's look at the right side of the brain, the creative side, generative. This is creating content based, again, on massive data sets where machine learning applies. There's a lot of jargony stuff here, so bear with us. Natural language processing. That's fancy speak for I can talk to the machine like it's a person. Okay. To look for precedent and create new outputs based on the request, or what's called in the AI space, the prompt that you're giving the AI generative engine. Let's boil all that down to something much more simple. It's putting into a machine or a prompt box saying, hey, AI, create me a picture of a panda bear riding a tricycle. Right? And it's just going to look at all the pictures it's ever seen of tricycles and of pandas, and it's going to figure out what a panda on a bicycle looks like, and it's going to give you an image. Then you can be more specific in your prompt and say, I want that to be a photograph of a panda riding a bicycle, or I want that to be a oil painting, right? The more specific you get, just like with a human in your request, it's going to be more accurate in what it provides you. So it's creating content based on stuff it's seen in the past and based on your prompt. Another example, so we have two examples here. One is a donor letter that's written using historical letters as a basis for tone and style and information on the donor record. So let's say we say to the generative AI engine, hey, I want to write this donor a letter. Here's all their information. They've given me 16 gifts, and this is the amount of all their gifts, and they live in New York City, or they live in, Toronto, whatever it might be. Write me a nice letter. And it might even start going through and looking for things about Toronto or New York to tie into that content, looking at the tone of past letters you've written, and it will create something for you that you can send. Now, is it ready to be mailed out without second guessing it or looking at it? No. Much like you would probably run it through approvals internally if it were someone writing that content for you. A second example is, hey, generative AI machine, I need a name for a monthly giving program. Our mission is we're a food bank, and here's the name of our nonprofit, and our vibe is positivity, right? AI is going to say, okay, here are 17 names that you might want to use for your monthly giving program, whatever it might be. So those are some examples of generative versus predictive. Predictive is going to give you predictions typically based on numbers and raw data, whereas generative is going to be more creative, literally left brain, right brain. Let's continue. Awesome. So here's some predictive in application. So we wanted to make sure that we talked about in this session optimized campaigns and really using AI to make data informed decisions. So let's optimize your campaign. Let's use AI to figure out who to send to. Who should we send this email to? I have 100,000 people in my mailing list, but I don't need to send to all 100,000 people because that might get too many unsubscribes if I'm sending to the wrong people. It might get a high bounce rate. It's going to ultimately damage us. So let's let AI say, okay, let's look at your data from your Google Analytics and your emails, and let's only send this to people that have been to your website in the last 3 months and have opened an email the last couple of times. And here's a list that we think is going to have a high open rate. Try this a couple of times, pare down your data, and you can see that your open rates, because you're now using a much smaller set, you're dealing more with quality over quantity, it's going to give you a nice list that you can use to activate donors in that way. What to ask them. So that means really predicting the giving propensity or likelihood and the pocket depth, right? So there are tools out there that we'll talk about a little bit later that do this. You say, hey, here's all my data. Here's all the stuff we know about them. That's kind of like wealth screening, but wealth screening as well is applying AI now to look at data in massive data sets and draw correlations and move forward. So we can really get higher output on our campaigns by being more specific and targeted, by using AI to help us make those decisions and sets that we're reaching out to, those data sets. Data informed decisions. So you take that data above, and we can use this to redefine internal ideas and notions, escape the echo chamber. So what do I mean by this? I've got a short story here to share about this, where we see that AI can really help deconstruct notions that you might have internally. We have a nonprofit that used Fundraising. They said, hey, our donors are 55 and older. That's who gives to us, right? And we said, okay, well, how is that proven? How do you know that? Well, because we do Google ads, and that's who we target, and that's who gives us money. And then we applied AI to an experience with this nonprofit. And now that 25 to 55 is their largest giving segment, because AI was now approaching new demographics in different ways on their terms. So a lot of that, there's a lot more into that conversation that we can look at. But generally, we can use AI to break the construct of internal notions that we have, where we might say, well, we should only really send this email on Fridays. Well, a certain segment of your data set is going to respond on Fridays. There's a certain segment that's going to work better on Mondays if you send it to them. Let AI figure that out. You can even say to an AI, here's 2 data sets. Here's all the data I have about these donors. Which ones are likely to respond better or open during a weekend or a weekday? So that's in your predictive. Where you want to apply generative through your creative concepts, you want to increase efficiency internally. You need some quick images created. You need some content, graphics. Use AI to create those things for you. Generative engines. There's DALL-E. There is ChatGPT for the text side of things. And we'll look at some nonprofit specific ones shortly as well. But let AI use generative to create content for you. Let it do the heavy lifting, and really leaving time for the more critical thinking and reasoning part of your work, not really the part that you might have to struggle through to get done or get resources from other teams. Improve donor engagement, right? Quickly improve your donor journey by creating variants of content. Say, hey, I've got a certain subset of my donor base that is giving on mobile all the time and another that is doing this. And you can say, AI, figure out what kind of image might resonate better with that group than this group. And it will create content variations that you can, send to different ones there. So that
Awesome, Sal. I'm going to actually pause because you have actually generated quite a bit of buzz in our chat.
Okay.
So read over some of those comments. But I love the example that you gave. I wanted to actually ask Mina. Mina, do you have a story or example that you can share? Because this is where again, yes, AI is amazing, but I like, as a fundraiser, copying from other fundraisers. Let's just be honest. But what example do you have of what Sal has just shared? Predictive versus generative. Tell me a story that you have.
Sure. So two things. One, so I come from this community-centric fundraising background, this movement. And so everything, when I talk about AI, I'm always including this, the equity piece in it, the inclusion piece in it. So I am going to say that, yes, use AI, experiment with it, but also trust yourself. Like, we are not leaving ourselves out of the equation. And what we are doing is really, how you might want to bring a new employee, a new staff member in your team, right? AI is something like that. Right now, what we need to do is create a good onboarding process for this new employee and not skip over that part just to feel like, how is this employee going to be 100% productive for me and give me everything in return? What we are trying to do at this stage is getting to know AI in a healthy onboarding way so that you know how you can symbiotically exist. Now, the story part, yes. So one story that I would offer for ChatGPT specifically. So I have used AI both in terms of building predictive models and also ChatGPT. I personally use ChatGPT. In fact, so in my personal business is doing this work of Namaste Data. There are definitely days, and I'm happy to be vulnerable here to say, there are definitely days when I'm sad and angry like any other human being. And I would use ChatGPT. I remember just when I would hear a harsh no, I would use it to say, hey, I got this rejection and I am sad about this. Give me something. And it would be like that calm friend you have who would give you step 1, step 2, step 3. Don't freak out, do step 1, then the step 2. I mean, it did lead to a good conversation with my partner who asked me, like, are you sure you want me? Because you now have ChatGPT who can do the same thing. So instead of doing that part, but work-wise, I would say how I'm seeing my clients and nonprofits using ChatGPT. This is a good example. A nonprofit out of Toronto, they support mental health resources and offers advocacy around mental health for BIPOC immigrants. And that's something where it's a new organization, sort of in like last 2 or 3 years, and they started using ChatGPT. And they reached out asking, what can I do with this? Just like all of us have this question here in this room, what can I do with this ChatGPT? 2 or 3 people in my organization can ask questions, but I don't know what else to do. So we started to use this focus, how Sal said, this generative side of things, like using ChatGPT to create social posts. And I can see a lot of good chat here in the window saying, oh, I use it daily, I use it for generating posts. So what we did was they had 2 employees, and this is a thing of like last 6 months, so it's still going on. They had 2 interns or part-time volunteers who were just getting into supporting their social media things, right? And so we started using ChatGPT to train them with the ethical framework. So we created first the ethical framework. What are the things that you can do, cannot do, should not do with ChatGPT, with generative AI? And then we trained the social media coordinators to start using that and implement, you bring in ChatGPT to do some of that work, right? Now that they had done it, we started to track what was transforming in their job. So if they were saving time, what percentage of time were they saving? And what happens with that transformed time? So not just bringing in AI, but how are we being intentional when the transformation happens? So when that happened, we started to realize, okay, so out of the 3 days these part-time coordinators work, they are able to save almost 50% of their time because they still have to do some work on the first drafts of the social media ChatGPT created. So what we did was we paired them up with the fundraisers of that organization. The fundraisers created internal training for those social media coordinators to start connecting and doing some sort of an engagement / stewardship for the social media longtime followers to bring into the fold. And they actually did bring in a few more volunteers and one donor, I think, in the last month or so. So it's pretty incredible what you can do with the transformation, not just the AI once you bring it, but once the transformation happens, what do you do with that?
Perfect. Oh my gosh, love it.
Story I'll touch on a little bit later, but with the tool specifically, but I had one fundraiser WhatsApp me and said, I'm going to be in the office till 2 a.m. writing these major donor letters I got to get out. And I said, did you try ChatGPT to create a draft of these things? And she said, no, I'm scared. I don't know. I said, just try this link. And about 10 minutes later, she texted me back and said, oh my God, I'm going to be out of here in 2 hours. And it did 80% of the work for me. This is a lifesaver. So like you said, Mina, it can really be transformational.
And Sal, drop those links that you've mentioned in the chat, because I'm already like taking notes here. What was it that Sal mentioned? Okay, so Sal, there's a number of fundraisers here. We're under pressure. We have our budgets. We need to make our fundraising goals, but we also have to become the expert in AI, right? Our bosses are talking about AI. Our board chairs are talking about AI. The pressure's on. So tell me what your thoughts are. Fundraisers, experts in AI, talk to me, Sal.
Let's jump into it. So let's pick up on that slide where we left off, if that's all right, because I have a great example here that should help square this up. Great. Okay. Do I have to buy ChatGPT a Valentine's Day present? You might want to, if it helps you out a lot, you never know.
Yeah, I mean, Sal, can I say, Tim, if you are also using ChatGPT just to say, hey, how are you? Give me a happy code, give me a happy something. Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah.
Sure, for sure. So I want to use this as an example here. In the chat, if you're comfortable, who knows how to drive a car? Who feels like they can drive an electric car? Or is there a difference even between gas or electric? Everyone here can drive a car, right? Maybe even just a little show of hands, a little reaction. Can you drive a car? Does it matter to you if it is electric or not, right? And if you're thinking, no big difference, I can drive either one of these, the same thing, it's 4 wheels and a steering wheel, pretty much, right? You don't need to be an expert in electric cars and servos and the machines there. Electric is much faster. But your difference between your electric car, the next generation of transportation, just like AI is the next generation of computing, and your gas-powered car, pretty much the same. If you know how to drive one, you're competent to drive the other. But you need to know the limitations of each, right? We know that with electric cars, we have a lot of benefits, smaller, a lower carbon footprint, et cetera, but we also have limitations. I can only drive a certain number of miles. I have to make sure that there is a charging station nearby and so on. So just as we have different expectations with each, I want to make sure that we know as a fundraising community that AI requires a different set of expectations, knowledge of the limitations, but you don't need to be an expert. You don't need to be an expert. You don't need to be Elon Musk in electric cars to use it. So that brings me to the next slide. Let's look at that.
Hey, Sal, can I add something there? Because I love that example so much. So when we are driving car, we are actually learning the possibilities of the car, right? As a driver. Like you said, we are also learning the limitations and challenges. And then there's this third aspect of that basic decency of driving when you are with others around you. You don't want to hurt others. You want to make sure you are following the protocols. You want to make sure you're keeping yourself safe as well as the others. We have an accountability when we are driving on the road. And those 3 things together builds that equation of good driver. Same thing with AI, possibilities, limitations, ethics, how we can and cannot be intentional. But love that example, Sal. Sorry, didn't want to interrupt.
No, it's an important layer to add in there, is that you have the same considerations for responsibility in either of those. So we need to make sure that we're not giving full control to the machine and saying go nuts. So these are some logos here of tools that you're already using. Surprise, you're already using all these tools that have AI built into it, right? LinkedIn, it's making recommendations about who you should connect with based on, using AI algorithms. Google, a lot of the search results. Yes, there's a next generation search coming out where it'll be more chat driven with the machine, but even the search engines you have now, they've got AI. Microsoft, Copilot, a lot of stuff that's AI you can spin out immediately. Meta, Facebook, when you're running ads on social media for your fundraising campaigns, the price of those clicks is going up and down based on AI and algorithms that are learning to optimize all of that stuff. Amazon, if you're using servers, they're using AI to adjust the capacity and resources of the infrastructure there. So if your organization is apprehensive about using AI, you're already using it. You're already benefiting from a lot of the technology that's there. But let's go to the next slide and let's summarize this expert and comfort level theme that we have here with AI. So it's not your job to be an expert. So everybody here, you don't need to run out and get certified and take classes at universities on how to do it. It is your job to know the limitations and advantages of AI-powered tools. So, know that there is a concept called hallucinations in AI. If anyone has heard of that, that means AI might fill in the blanks with fake stuff if it doesn't know the actual thing. And you might even try this yourself. Put in, ask ChatGPT, put in your own name, and it's going to say something to you. It's not going to say, I don't know who that is. It's going to come up with some answer for you. Just like maybe an intern might say, when you give them a task to complete, they're going to give you something back, even though it might not be right. But hey, boss asked for it. So AI is a bit like that. So you want to make sure that we know the limitations there and that we have to check things. Your nonprofit's already using it. So that's something to know, right? We shouldn't be that afraid of it. We're already using it in different ways, and the organization's using it. Set your expectations. I love the Pareto principle, 80-20. Very, it saves me in my day-to-day. If something's going to get me 80% of the way there, it's worth using it. Similar with AI, you're going to get an image, you're going to get a letter, you're going to get data, and you want to check it and get to completion there, with that extra 20%. So it's going to get you most of the way there. It's going to help you use your time more efficiently, right? You're going to speed up a lot of these tasks and things that were manual. It's going to give you a higher ROI on your time and efforts. This is one that's interesting, and I'm going to spend a second talking about it. It's going to level the playing field. What do I mean by that? I mean, every company out there that is fighting for dollars from wallets, right? Be it selling consumer packaged goods, technology, whatever. Your donors are getting inundated with marketing and tools that are leveraging AI to get wallet share. Nonprofits are typically on the back foot when it comes to technology, adopting technology, how advanced they are. And we don't want to let that delta, that gap between what for-profit entities are doing to get dollars and what we're doing. In my dream utopic world, nonprofits are meeting or exceeding the practices in an ethical way of for-profits to earn donors. So we do want to level the playing field. We don't want to let that gap get too wide. Know the ecosystem of the tools that are out there. There's a great post here, article on Whole Whale that has a nice list of tools. I put that in the chat there that you can use for generative AI, which is pretty interesting. It's a great read. And I'm putting one more link in here to fundraising.ai. This is an organization that is standing up put together last year, and it is creating a framework for ethical AI usage by the fundraising community. So some things there you might want to click, open a new tab, sit on it for a little bit.
Okay, I saw somebody's hand go up. Whose hand was raised? Did you have a question? It disappeared after like 2 seconds, so maybe you're being shy. Are you out there? Are you out there? I'm gonna pause.
Don't be
All right.
shy.
I know, don't be shy. Don't be shy. So, while I wait for that person to raise their hand again, Nina, something that I've been meaning to ask you as I keep my eye on the clock, because I know we're going to run out of time, but this has been burning in my mind ever since our first conversation. You mentioned that your work, you sit at the intersection between DEIA and AI. I'm like, that is so cool. So, what does that mean? The intersection between DIA and AI, does it mean AI is fair? Does it mean that AI has a bias? Talk to me a little bit about this. I want to cover a little bit of and uncover a little bit about what your comments are, but then I also want to leave time for questions at the end from our group. So Mina, talk to me.
Well, you're right. I sit at the intersection of data, nonprofits, equity, inclusion, and AI. That is how I like to describe my role. I want to take us back to the same example I started with, right? I mean, I talked about a fridge. There was this little program on the top, which can look on everything that your fridge has, everything that you put in your fridge. It learns from it and it predicts things and tells you what you can buy, should buy, and what are the kinds of things you can eat. Just imagine that program. How can we make sure that it is biased or not? Or how can we make sure that it's fair or not? Unbiased or not, it's definitely biased. Systems can be biased. What are the potential entry points where biases can enter in that program? It can come from how you eat, right? Your family could have 5 people, but maybe you are putting in things where you don't know for the 2 members who are joining you for the weekend, you don't know about their food habits. You only have things that you eat in your fridge. Your program is now being trained on the things that you are putting into it, right? That's one place, because you have some assumptions, or maybe it's your own food habits that you're placing things in the food. The other could be everything that is in the fridge. That's the only place your program is running, not just what you are bringing, but everything that's in the fridge itself. My point is that the program has limitations. Any algorithm, and I'm going to use the word algorithm, that gives me more comfort than AI. Your algorithm has a life cycle that I just spoke of, the AI life cycle. You have an objective, you collect data around it, you put it into a system, a model, an algorithm, it creates some output predictions, it impacts you, your behavior, your actions, and it leads to some sort of an impact. Each step of that wheel can have a bias. Your data, is it being representative of your community or not? The model, are you picking the right models or not? The output, who's translating the output and whose assumptions are you making? I do a lot of analysis around equity analysis around data, and I feel both powerless, both powerful, and sort of this accountability that I can make any assumptions as I'm looking at 15 indicators of demographic and trying to compare it against the possibility and opportunity. So there are different points in that cycle of AI where assumptions can creep in from different actors in that whole scenario. So AI can be biased, and what can be, we know for sure if we start looking at it is biased. What can we do about it? We can start building more accountability. We can, first of all, something that I say in my workshop, I run a workshop called Human-Centric AI, and something that I say there is each of us has some form of an influence when it comes to AI. Yes, we are already using it. Yes, there are going to be more and more programs around us for AI. And yes, we would always feel that it's the big tech companies who are going to create those programs and give it to us. But each of us have that influence when it comes to AI that we can don't need to feel powerless. This is what I mean, Jennifer, when I talk about community-centric AI, that we need to center our people. We need to center, because we are the data points. You and I are the data points that live in those algorithms, that live in those data sets. So my point when I go nerdy and comfortably sit in my rabbit hole talking about this is that we need to be hyper, uber, ultra focused into centering the people, our community at the center of AI. Why are we using AI? What is it going to transform? How would it help and support us for our fundamental why of establishing relationship back in the community? AI is not going to, it's going to enable us. It's not taking over the why that we still have. We are still accountable to our work. We are still accountable to our mission, to our why. So that is what I mean by community-centric AI.
Oh man, my stomach is like churning. I don't know if it's because I'm hungry and this is lunchtime or if all the issues that you're sharing and in the chat is making me just even more nervous. But okay, I'm not going to go into my own bias. I'm going to actually turn it back over to Sal. Sal, you said you have a few more resources that you want to leave the participants with. Please, Sal, take us away. We have just 11 more minutes and a lot of information more to share.
Great. All right, let's jump back into the deck. I'm going to power through some of these here. I think we covered a lot of the bias conversation there, really in a short point. Is it fair? Yes. Is it biased? Yes. Are we challenged? Is it an acceptable bias? Sometimes it is. Bias isn't always bad, right? If we're looking at asking for X demographic, we do it in our fundraising practices, but being aware of it is key. So let's look at ways to use AI today. So this group, I want everyone to kind of walk away not scared, and today do something with AI, right? Do something, create an image, create a letter, write a poem for your partner, write a storybook or a lullaby song for your kid that has their name in it, whatever, use AI to do it. So let's finding tools that have AI baked in. That'll be on our next slide. We'll show some examples there. Is akin to, using sustainable products and solutions in your day-to-day versus restructuring your entire world to be sustainable. Let's not build an entire AI engine for our organization. Let's use tools that are experts in that, because as fundraisers, as nonprofits, our mission is our mission. We're not technologists. We don't need to be. We shouldn't be. It's not expected of us. So let's use tools that have that and are doing that. Set your expectations accordingly. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to save you time, promise, and it's going to be fun. And think of where to apply AI in your organization and bucket your ideas in predictive or data, left brain, and generative content, right brain. Start simple, grow from there. Start with a single email or graphic, not the entire campaign. So let's jump into the next slide and look at some tools here. These came to mind for me when I started thinking of tools that have AI built into these. All of these are free, no cost, low cost, and top shelf. They're all great. Fundraise Up, where Jennifer and I spend a lot of our time for online donations using AI for that. Dataro, I think I saw Alex from Dataro here in the chat. Fantastic tool for analyzing your historical data and your donor database. Windfall have AI baked into wealth screening. A real good one here that I want to draw everyone's attention to is Nonprofit AMA. Nonprofit Ask Me Anything. .ai. It's actually created by an executive director that I used to work for at the Child Mind Institute. She's also a data scientist, and she has loaded in decades of her work and all of her experience into the learning data set specifically for nonprofits. And you can ask it something like, hey, who are the best corporate partners for an organization like mine of X, Y, and Z? And it's like chatting with Elizabeth herself. So try that tool, Nonprofit AMA. Microsoft also baking in a lot of AI. Jennifer and I were at the Microsoft event in Seattle where we dove into a lot of AI, and there's a lot of stuff in their tools baked in, ready to go. So those are some quick takeaways. This is an example of AI in a donation form, making predictive suggestions on the suggested ask amounts. The next slide, and that's the Fundraise Up checkout. The next slide here is a discussion with Elizabeth Planet, the executive director and consultant of Nonprofit AMA. Hey, how do you find the best corporate partners? And she'll give you the next steps there based on all of the work she's done for various nonprofits. So these are really cool tools, one being predictive, one being generative, and you can go from there. So those are some great ways to get started. I think there was one final slide, but I think that just kind of includes some ways you can act on that. It's in the Microsoft link. So when you click that link, you'll be able to find some information about Microsoft and how they're applying AI. It's not scary, everyone. It's just an electric car engine and the 4 wheels you've used. And you just have to know where to apply it into your day-to-day. It'll be fun. You're already.
Sal, you're so awesome. But I am a bus type of gal. I take public transportation for all the reasons. Okay. So anyways,
Electric bus,
we
whatever bus, it's you can't destroy my analogy that easily.
you're so good. This is why I love working with you, but also I really want to make sure that we have 7 minutes left for you all to ask some questions. Who is going to ask questions? Because the chat is blowing up. I can't even keep up with you folks. Any hands raised? Any hands raised? Russell Hall, I see you. There must be somebody in Russell Hall who wants to ask a question. Come off mute. Ask the question. This time is yours, my friend. You have Sal, you have Mina, and they are welcoming your queries.
And if they come to you later, feel free to connect with any of us on LinkedIn. Shoot us a direct. No problem.
Perfect.
If you that's got your tongue or it's something you don't want to ask publicly.
Lori, you want to go ahead, Lori?
Hi, sorry. I have a toddler sick from school today, so
Ah,
I might have missed this, but do you have any resources for more comprehensive commands for AI, like to like when you're being a little more specific around, so they give you something and be like a little more specific. So like what kinds of commands or resources for that?
Those are prompts, right? So those
Yeah.
are called prompts in the AI jargon. I'm not aware of specifically any that are completed and like fully documented nonprofit specific prompts. I think that's a great project for someone to take on and publish. I'm not mentioning any, but it's something you might want to jump into. But really, from my perspective, it's be as specific as possible. That's really how you want to do, and be specific about what you want it to exclude or not include. If you're trying to remove biases, if you're stuck in a loop of, our donors are always X, Y, and Z, find out what's defining them as X, Y, and Z, and ask AI to exclude that so you can start looking at other data sets. So exclude and be specific.
Yeah.
go ahead, Mina. Any prompts for us? I'm writing this down because prompts would be amazing. Lori, great question.
Yeah, Lori, great question. I would say my equation, usually I don't have any resource. I run a workshop called AI Advancement Lab. I talk about prompts, but I don't create any prompts such as that. My simple equation is be as specific. So what, where, how, when, everything going in there without taking any identifiable information. So you're not, making sure you're being ethical right there and in terms of data privacy, but be as specific and also offer the guidance on what kind of output do you want. Do you want it in terms of a table? Do you want it in terms of text? Or do you want it in terms of give me the response in paragraphs and no points? So offer it the input, offer it the output, and it's going to do its own work.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you.
Because really,
do you like my prompt? How do I raise more money? Is that a good prompt?
But see, that's the thing. Be as specific as possible to Mina's point. Because if not, AI will fill in the blanks. And if you ask it, how do I get more money? It's going to say rob a bank, right? It's not going to really filter out the other stuff. So unless you give it enough context, say, hey, it's a nonprofit and I need to raise more money. In that case, it's going to say, oh, well, you're a nonprofit. robbing a bank doesn't appear in historical data as a proven method, let me not recommend that. So just to the point, Mina, specificity is obviously key because it will fill in the blanks.
Thank you, Sal. All right. We have to have a little bit of humor, right? Sometimes we get so like weirded out by AI, but I do have a lot of fun with AI. So thank you for that. A little bit of levity. Any other questions? We have 2 minutes. If
I have a
not,
question.
oh, yes, Madam President. Oh, AFP President, Co-President
Oh
Alicia.
no, putting me
What
on the
is your
spot.
question, my friend?
I'm curious, and I don't know if y'all know the answer to this, but how is this going to shape our communication staff? And what are their roles? Like, that's a concern of mine. Just what that's going to look like in the future. I know it's kind of a nebulous question, but
Do you want to tackle it, Mina, or I have some thoughts? It's up to you.
Yeah, go ahead. I also have some thoughts, Sal, but I'll wait. I want to
I'll
let you first.
keep mine brief. I think it's going to allow your team to be more productive. It's just going to allow them to take on projects with more confidence, without burning out as easily, right? With getting more done in less time. The fears that AI is going to replace people is like saying interns are going to replace paid workforce. It's not going to happen, right? We still need the control, the layer, the human element on top of that. That's my positioning. I don't think it's going to damage or take away jobs. If that's what your question is, it's going to help us get more productive.
Yeah, else I would say it's simply transforming. It's not taking away the jobs, it's transforming the roles. So one thing that I'm thinking in terms of communication, it can do is, you would start looking at your AI is trained on specific set of data points. So if you are dealing with, let's say, this is happening in my project, and when I'm working with vulnerable population here in Vancouver or historically marginalized communities here, I don't have enough data set to train an AI and let AI guide me on that. So I'm not going to rely on that. But in places where I can rely, I'm going to use AI things so that it can guide me in terms of, creating some of the letters, creating some of the questions that I need, creating some of the interview guides that I need. I can create those products and start using them. And it's transforming something because of saving time or something and how you are using that transformation. So I think it's going to be supportive, but intentionally. I'm always going to pick the word intentionally and with purpose.
Yeah. And Matt in the chat from Bainbridge here, he says, as a comms person, ChatGPT has redesigned his workflow. Interesting, right? Because now it becomes a part of it. Now you say, let me start at ChatGPT or some other AI tool and build from there. And I assume, Matt, that you get more efficient and you're able to get more done because the 80-20 rule, the AI is helping you with the bulk of the work. There we go. My hunch was right.
There we go. We are at time. Sal, Mina, every single one of you that have spent time with us today. Mina, I think you had the word for me. If we could close with the word intentionality. Beautiful. Thank you, everybody. Please join us again. Great information in the chat. I see something from AFP South Sound. There's a neurodiversity event coming up from Lee Warnicki. We will see you and talk to you soon. Mahalo. 谢谢. 新年快乐. Aloha, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.